I like the mistakes startups make. They probably start too late. Like once you get rolling, you just don't think about it. Your community can become your main channel for feedback with customers, potential customers. Just I remember even in the early days of Bevy, we were hosting these little events. We only had like 20 customers, and we would bring these events together and in these little tiny places, and do presentations and discussions, and that was enough. It was enough to just have a few people there, and we would get feedback. And so I think, like, from the beginning of when you start your startup, as soon as you get a product live, turn those prospects, those leads, those early customers, turn them into a community and get them talking to each other. And I think you'll find positive things will come from that.
Derek, it's absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Derek, you have created a blueprint of building startup communities when you launched the Startup Grind back in 2010.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I've watched what you've done in Turkey, and how you've helped startups and helped build the community there with great awe and respect from where I am. So grateful to be with you and spend time together. The thing that's really timeless about Startup Grind are our values, which are to give more than you take, help others first, and make friends. Those are really Silicon Valley values, and we try to encapsulate those inside of Startup Grind, and I hope those never change. I mean, those are the things that really inspire people, and it inspired people in 2010, and it inspires people today. I think, what would we change? The pandemic really changed the way that people build community and host events specifically. And it's still not clear what's going to happen, in the next couple of years. We're definitely not, even though, people are not on lockdown anymore, we're definitely not back to where we were event-wise before COVID. And so I think if it was started today, there would be a much smaller emphasis on in-person events, a much greater emphasis probably on other types of community building activities. That said, I think in-person events really are, and just being in person is a really important part of being human. And so, there's a loneliness epidemic. The majority of people feel loneliness at some point. Some large percentage of the population, 25-30%, feel a huge amount of loneliness. And building community and feeling belonging inside of a community is one way to help avoid feeling lonely. And so I think the work that we do as community builders is really essential work. So I hope more people will build communities, and I hope Startup Grind will continue to grow and thrive, because it brings belonging in people's lives, and that's a good thing.
Did you start any ventures before Startup Grind? How was their results?
Not good. I worked for Electronic Arts as my first job. I did internships there, and then I worked there. And I quit in 2009 in the middle of the financial crisis called the Great Recession here in the United States. And I really felt like I needed to leave and to go work on my own ideas. I was having a hard time sleeping at night thinking about the ideas I was interested in. And so, but I had many failures. The only thing consistent over the first few years was that every 6 months I would fail more than the last 6 months. Startup Grind was this thing we did for fun once a month. But I had a mentor who actually shared this advice with me one time, and he said, I don't know about that product you're working on right now, but the Startup Grind thing has some magic to it. You should maybe think about working more on that and spending more time on that. And I remember leaving that meeting and thinking, okay, maybe I'll go from 10% of my time to 15 or 20. And then more good things happened. So then I went to 25 and to 30%. And so, but lots of products that I built, most of the things I built have failed. and only a few have been successful. But that's kind of the nature of, I think, of creating.
Did you ever feel like quitting in those early days of startup grind?
I still feel like quitting a lot. It wasn't just the early days of startup grind. It's entrepreneurship is I think as Steve Blank says, is a contact sport. Sometimes people ask me, do you want your kids to be entrepreneurs? And my response to that is, let me ask you a question. Would you want your kids to go to war and to fight? And it's like, no, of course not. I'm like, well, why would I want my kids to be entrepreneurs? Why would I send them to war? And that is, that's what entrepreneurship feels like. It is the highest highs and the lowest lows of professional experience, because everything is you. And the team that you built. And so how do I fight loneliness was your question. For me, when I really get discouraged, I go to the places and the times that have been most difficult in my life. And there are two in particular that I go back to. And, I sort of feel like whatever I'm facing as a startup is not as hard as those things. The things of life, the things everyone goes through, death, sorrow, loss. Everyone has those in their life. And, a startup ultimately is just a business. It's just a project. So, if you have that sort of like perspective that, life is not all about just building a company. It's not actually, it's a small part of life. It takes a lot of time, but it's not the most important things in life. And so you want to just make sure you keep the important things in life, family, your children, your relationship with your partner. You want to try to really maintain those things. Those things are really important. And, a business, a startup, like, it's important, but, it's not, things come and go. And so try to keep that perspective, also, like, whenever you're feeling really down on what's going on with you, if you go help someone, you'll feel better. And so I try to do that too. Try to serve, try to support, try to give. It doesn't have to be in business. It can be anything. Like, just go do service, and you'll find that you'll feel better. And so those are ways that I try to overcome, the dark times.
How has upbringing and background as a Mormon influenced your approach and mindset as an entrepreneur?
It's a very thoughtful question. I've never been asked that question. Being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is it's an incredible community. First of all, it's full of really earnest and thoughtful people that have similar values as me, people that care about their families and people that are trying to do good, people that want to raise good children, people that believe that there is a higher purpose in life than just the mundane of working and waking up and going to sleep. It's influenced, my wife, my children, my, brothers and sisters, my parents, and then many of my extended friends. It's kind of like if you meet a member of our church anywhere in the world, I can probably find a connection to them pretty fast. And that's an interesting, it's an interesting community, because, we're here to help each other, and we're actually, it's about 15 million people, maybe almost 20 million people. And, but it's still very small, and everyone really is there to help each other. And it's good to have friends, and it's good to have people that care about you. And so it influences a lot. It influences what I eat, how I treat my body. It influences how I treat my soul. And then it influences how I parent my children. And I think, hopefully, if you've come across someone that's a member of our church, hopefully you said, I think they're a good person, or there's somebody I want to spend time around. that's been my experience, and that's why I maintain my faith.
Why don't you drink coffee?
Good question. Well, in the scriptures in the Bible, it talks about bodies being a temple. And so there's a lot of things that there's a lot of things that we subscribe to that help sort of keep us in line. And some are extremely obvious and others are less obvious. And some are extremely helpful and some are, kind of, on the fence. But I would say, things we don't do, we don't do drugs. We don't use tobacco. We don't drink alcohol. And if you've ever seen a line at Starbucks at an airport before an early morning flight, I've never missed a flight waiting to get a coffee because I had to get a coffee. I don't really drink caffeine, and because I have before, but it gives me really bad headaches. And so, I just don't want any substance. And I think this is the intent behind the code. It's a health code. And the intent behind the health code is that we're never going to become a slave to any sort of physical substance. Coffee's a pretty mild one, but I definitely know some people that are slaves to getting coffee every morning, and so I drink orange juice and water, and it works just fine.
Have you experienced imposter syndrome?
Every day, every week, every month, Burak. Felt it yesterday, I'll feel it today. Yeah, I mean, I've been in lots of scenarios where I was with people that were way more successful than me, and I felt like I had no business being there. But the thing is that everybody has something to contribute. And so, you should, like, literally everyone, I can learn something from anyone. So everyone feels some level of imposter syndrome. Everyone feels some level of inadequacy. So you just need to kind of embrace that and like, you're special and you have a unique experience. And so why can't you, have something to contribute? You do. And literally in any room, in any scenario. And I think those feelings are perfectly normal and natural. And maybe they're good. Maybe it's good to keep you on your toes and keep you focused and keep you grateful for where you are. So yes, definitely feel that.
You mentioned you have influential mentors like Steve Blank and others. How has their guidance shaped your journey, and who are your other mentors?
They've had a huge impact on me. I would say that the biggest impact of mentors, for me anyways, has been to really keep me from making catastrophic mistakes. The day-to-day, most people don't have time. You got to kind of figure that out yourself. But the really, really big mistakes, or the big decisions, those are the ones that I go and get help. Ryan Smith, who's the owner of the Utah Jazz, the founder of Qualtrics, we went to college together, but every time I talk to him, I leave feeling much, much smarter. George Zachary was somebody that was really influential with Startup Grind in the early days, someone I've always looked up to. And my dad has always given me incredible advice. And, you need people around you who aren't trying to make money off you, who just want to genuinely help you and see you succeed. There's another person named Blake Roney who founded a company called a public company called New Skin, who's been a real supporter of mine and a very, very influential person in my life. And so these are, these are all amazing people. Steve Swell, you mentioned him. Always helped me in many decisions. Yeah, find people that care about you. Don't ask them to be your mentor. I've never asked those people to be my mentor. Just ask them for help. Just ask them for advice. Doesn't need to be some big formal thing. Just partner together, and that's good enough.
How do you get your decisions? Intuition based or data based?
I trust my gut a lot. And maybe that's not good. I don't know. It's been good. It's been mostly good. I wish I kind of used a little more data than I do, I think. But yeah, George Zachary talked about in a Startup Grind talk in 2012 that I did with him. he talked about really like listening to your inner voice in making big decisions. And I've tried to do that, and it's led me down the path that it's led me down. And so I think, sometimes it's hard, is it your gut, or is it did you just have a bad lunch or something? What is that feeling? What is the voice that you trust? And I don't know. I think over time, as you do it over years, maybe decades, you can hear it more if you're quiet, and if you're listening, and if you're in tune with your soul a little bit. You can kind of, I think Steve Jobs said something like, there's something inside you that knows where you need to go, and so you need to listen to it. And I think that's right. I don't have all the answers, but I generally just say, hey, I'm going to trust my gut and then my intuition, and then just live with the consequences of that. And generally that's been really positive.
You have a successful community created Startup Grind. Why did you spin off a Bevy?
So we really didn't intend to. What happened was, we were growing with Startup Grind. We were having all these issues scaling. The tooling was really, really cobbled together. And so I went out and looked at all the tools in the market, just expecting to buy something off the shelf. And I found out it was going to cost us so much to buy, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. We didn't have that kind of money. So we kind of did the math on what it would take to build it and how long it would take. And so we decided to build it. I thought it would cost about $500,000 over a couple of years, which we could use for 10 years. So it's going to end up costing me like $50,000 a year, which was which felt affordable. And well, it turned out, it ended up taking us much longer than we thought, and cost much more to build than we thought. But it really helped when we launched Bevy with Startup Grind in 2016. It really helped our growth to take off, and it helped us sleep more, helped us build more community and get more sleep. And so then I started showing it to other people, and they kind of shockingly started to buy it. And I got into some enterprises, and they bought it. Atlassian became a very early customer. Before it was ever Bevy, it was still Startup Grind. And some of these people bought it. And so once we had that kind of traction and energy, we created a new company, and then we spun it out, and we took the engineering team, was getting bigger and bigger. We took them and moved them to this other company. So it was really a natural, sort of organic journey to get to the point of it becoming a company. And that I think a lot of the best things that get created are done in that way. They're not made in a lab. It's not like, hey, let's get in a room, let's start a company. It's like, hey, we have this problem, let's go solve it, let's see what happens. And in this case, it was, led to a sort of a new opportunity.
How do you keep the customers on the platform?
Yeah, I think, one thing that's good for us is that we have a lot of empathy as community people. We are community people. We are building community. I'm still working with Startup Grind and running that community. We're one of Bevy's biggest customers from a community side. So because we're community people, we really care about the solution and the tools. And so that empathy for the customer, I think, is super valuable. And, when we brainstorm together, it's not, and when they work with us, it's not, from some high mountaintop. Like, we're in the weeds with them. We're in the mud. We're in the dirt. And I think that's something people appreciate. And I think, look, like, being close to customers, go to lunch with them, talk to them, get on the phone, get off of email. Just, you don't need to scale your customers initially. You just need to, build 10 or 20 or 30 people that love what you're doing and will sing from the rooftops. And they've helped us so much. Our customers are everything to us. They get on the phone for us. They tell their friends about us. It means so much to me whenever somebody, has something positive to say. It still means the world to me. And, and hopefully we help them along the way too. So it's a good give and take relationship. But don't worry, as Paul Graham would say, about doing things that aren't scalable. You can scale later. Like just help people solve their problems.
Should you explain the strategy about the
Yeah.
Bevy's customer to customer?
So a couple of why. Okay. So Bevy is an AI-driven platform to help you manage and grow your community through events and discussions and groups. So what a couple of trends have sort of led to this being a predominant way that people do marketing. One is that millennials do not want to be sold to. So this sort of digital ads, ad blockers and everything, like less and less, this is how people want to buy. The other thing is millennials in particular, and people after them, they want to feel like their dollars are going to something that has purpose and meaning. There's a great company called Cotopaxi. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's like apparel and bags and, but it has this mission of really helping people. And, at the end of the day, like it's bags and it's apparel, but it has this feeling. And you feel this purpose when you buy their clothes. I saw them in the airport yesterday. It has this feeling for people. People are proud to wear their clothes. And that is indicative of how people are buying today. And so what really smart marketers have learned is that community is an incredible way to both to market to people, but also to help bring purpose in their customers' lives. To show that it's not just a transactional, like, give me money, I'll give you this product. That's not how the great brands work today. And so the best and smartest brands in the world have built incredible customer communities. Products like Bevy are able to help them to scale those communities. And so we work with Google and Salesforce and Adobe and Snowflake and Figma and so many other amazing companies to really bring belonging into their customers' lives, to bring a non-transactional relationship together between the company and the customer, and which ultimately leads to greater acquisition, higher retention, and larger expansion. There are good business reasons for doing it, but it's also just a great thing to do to bring belonging in your customers' lives.
How did your offering change over time? Especially primary, it was in-person meetings, now virtual events?
Yeah. Before COVID, we were only in person. We would never do a virtual event. I was very anti-virtual event because in person's a better way to build community. When COVID hit, our product was like basically illegal in every country in the world. You couldn't meet. No one could meet together. So, naturally we shifted as best we could, and we found virtual events, and we had great success with that. I would say now people have shifted back to in-person. So maybe it went from all in-person to all virtual. Now it's somewhere in between, more in-person than virtual, actually. And we're continuing to shift. We've just spent the last 6 months building a whole bunch of AI tools. I think we could talk about it if you want. I became a student of AI last year and met with lots of really amazing people and believe it has a really important place in the future of tooling and technology. And so we've been trying to catch up and to bring AI into our customer spaces and help them to work more efficiently and to get more sleep. And so we'll continue to evolve as we talk to customers. We just want to solve customer problems. And if customers, have a problem that takes us in a different direction and it's the right thing to help build better communities, we'll absolutely do it.
Should you explain what does to be a student of AI means?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of last year studying AI, talking to a lot of really smart people. I met with 30 of our customers in person. I traveled around the world to meet with customers. And then I started to form some hypothesis around how AI could really help community. And then I went back to those customers and I did 40 hours of customer calls. And I said, hey, this is what I learned from you. this is how I'm thinking about it. What do you think? Here's our plan. And people really resonated with that plan. So then we went and built those tools. And so the first things that we've built are around helping you generate ideas for different types of events, different types of conversations and discussions you can have. How can we build your emails for you? Can we build your blog posts for you? By helping you with your content and tying that directly into the tool. But I think in some ways I was sort of frustrated because we weren't just immediately building AI, but it felt like the smarter thing to do, and I'm glad we did it, was to just sort of step back, see what's happening, really understand it thoroughly, go back to school, essentially, become a student, and then see where the problems were and see what problems can AI solve better than just the normal way of building these tools. And some problems can be solved with AI and others can't. And so that's kind of where we started, is the biggest problems, which are the local community builders. How do we help them become more successful? How do we help them to have more time to do what they do great, which can't be replaced, which is building relationships, being with people. We can't replace that. So there's other things we can do to make that, give them more time back to do that.
How did you understand that there was a product and product market fit? And how did you decide pricing strategy?
Well, originally with Bevy, the way that it started with pricing, I had no idea in pricing because, I had looked at the tools myself and found them to be poorly priced. And so the first person I showed Bevy to, he actually wanted to buy it. It was somebody that was building a kind of smaller version of Startup Grind. And he said, well, how much is it? I said, I don't know. Like, well, how much do you think it's worth? He said, it's your product. You need to decide. Like, okay, that's fair. So I left and then I came back and I was very nervous and I was shaking. And I said, what's the cheapest I could do it for without, it was the first one. So we were taking it from Startup Grind and kind of cloning it for this new person. And the cheapest I could figure out to do it was going to cost us like 20 grand, 20,000 US. And so I said to him, I said, look, we'll do it at our cost. It's going to be like $20,000. He said, that's great. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, that price is great. I'm like, wait, you'd pay more? And he's like, well, I'm going to pay that price, but yeah, I would have paid more. I was like, oh, dang it. So then the next person, right? And then you say 21 and they're like, that's too much. You're like, oh, sorry. And it's like, 10. You just kind of feel it out and you negotiate. And then at some point you get enough data points that you can start to say, okay, here's what it's worth. Here's what the competitors are charging. We've just changed our pricing actually to make it a lot more affordable. You can use Bevy today. You can build a community on Bevy today for $50 a month. And it's like Facebook groups, Zoom, Meetup, Eventbrite, all of these things combined into one. And that's a good way to start. And that's where we've never had that ability before. So I'm really excited. And we're seeing people just building communities. We don't even know them. It's really, really exciting and fun to see that. And our mission is to help end loneliness. And what we realize is that we can't help end loneliness if we can't make our tools more accessible to everyone, any community builder, anywhere. And so, we kind of, and our price can be very expensive when you use a lot of it. And when you're a really big company, our price scales up. And we hopefully create a lot of value for those companies. And now it can scale all the way down to $50 a month.
What are some emerging trends you see when it comes to building communities today?
Well, I think, look, this is not a new thing. It's an old thing. But, community is cadence. And you know this better than anybody, Burak, because you built such an amazing community in Istanbul and across Turkey and across the Middle East. The frequency of which you do things, it's not a new thing. It's timeless. Like if you stop, you're not building community. So this is what I always said, like, if we just do an event, we're just hosting an event. But if you do it regularly, if you're always there for people, like, that's really building community. And that's been a hypothesis that I've had for 10 years, and it still is relevant today. I do think that we just need people to talk and engage more. And so, I think private discussions and private, discussion communities, I think, is something that is very relevant right now. You can have the size doesn't matter. I mean, that's another thing. It's like, if you have 10 or 20 people that love what you do, then that's great. Go enjoy it. Do a book club, get your dogs together. Like, there's so many things you can do to build a community and you're doing your part in your little garden of the world. So those are a couple of ideas. I think really great community builders can combine all the things together: in-person events, virtual events, discussion groups. Like, they bring all these pieces together so that, and then with AI, like, AI is going to be searching our content so much more efficiently than has ever happened before. We have 7,000 videos of Startup Grind. What's in there? It's all the best entrepreneurs. It's all the best venture capitalists. Like, I want to search that wealth of information and bring it in to help me to build my startup. How can I do that? AI can do that. So AI is really going to unlock a lot of community content, and that's a really exciting thing that's on the horizon as well.
Did you implement Startup Grind text to AI and also start teaching AI all the videos?
We're working on it. Yeah, it's not there yet, but working on it. You probably should do it too. You have so many videos, right? So I think, maybe the next 3 or 4 months, we'll start to see some of the power of what's possible with analyzing all those videos and all of that content, and hopefully help startups to be more successful.
In Bevy, what are the biggest mistakes that you see startups make when trying to build a community, and when should they start to building a community?
This is a great question. You should always, from the first day, you should be getting, I mean, we know this from Steve Blank. From the first day, you should be getting customers to validate the things you're working on. Actually, a quick story. I remember one time I was talking to Steve Blank, and he's like, I'm going to Turkey. I'm going to Burak's event in Turkey. I'm really excited about it. I know, he had an amazing time there. It was many years ago. But you've done such an incredible job at hosting the best people in the world and really bringing them to Turkey and showing them what's possible there. But yeah, like, the mistakes startups make, they probably start too late. Like, once you get rolling, you just don't think about it. Your community can become your main channel for feedback with customers, potential customers. I remember even in the early days of Bevy, we were hosting these little events. We only had like 20 customers, and we would bring these events together and in these little tiny places, and do presentations and discussions, and that was enough. It was enough to just have a few people there, and we would get feedback. And so I think, like, from the beginning of when you start your startup, as soon as you get a product live, turn those prospects, those leads, those early customers, turn them into a community and get them talking to each other. And I think you'll find positive things will come from that.
You have seen lots of ecosystems around the world. Which ecosystems are coming top of your list?
Well, I don't have a list like that I track myself, but if I just were to name a few of the places, I mean, there are some, like, Tel Aviv, that just have done an incredible job at continuing to push out innovation. You've got, in the United States, I think the ecosystem in Utah, I was there last week. There are more IPOs from Utah than New York. Austin, Miami, a lot of really smart, incredible people moved to Miami. I'm from Florida originally. It's hard for me to believe that Miami and Florida is a tech hub, but it's amazing to see. It's just a change that's happened in the last 5 years. New York City and LA and San Francisco, they're always going to be amazing places for tech because they're amazing places to live. I think some things happening in Dubai are really incredible as well. London has a lot of venture capital that's flowing into it right now. So I mean, there's a lot of U.S. cities in there, but those are some of the places I think. There's a few smaller places that are, have really great leaders who are really pushing for startups to be an important part of their economic engine. And then there are just some great places to live, and they're always going to have great people.
Are there any cultural differences in the entrepreneurship mindset in different geographies?
So many, right? Because look, failing is not a good thing in any culture. But there are certain cultures where it's much more acceptable to fail. And so it's easy for me in Silicon Valley to say, oh, I've had lots of failures. I wouldn't have if you had asked me in the moment, Derek, like, why are you failing so much? I wouldn't have liked to talk about it, but it's easy for me now to talk about it. I have had some success, so it's easier for me to talk about the failures. But in other cultures and in other countries, it's not acceptable. And so I think that's a really hard thing to change. This sort of traditional path of success, go to school, get an education, then go get a job, then go do this. That's how a lot of our parents look at success. And that's not really how success in entrepreneurship gets created. There's no natural path there to entrepreneurship. So it can be good, to spend time in the Valley. It can be good to spend time in places that have a little bit different culture and have a little more accepting of failure. So you can get some of that in your system, and then maybe you go back home and get going again. But yeah, lots of cultures do not accept failure the way that we accept it here in California.
You bootstrapped Startup Grind for many years ago.
Still do.
But change your approach in Bevy. What made you finally decide to take outside investment?
I was going to run out of money. I had to. That's a good reason to take funding when you've got customers. Before we spun Bevy out of Startup Grind, it was like a golden anchor on this Startup Grind ship. And it was like going to take the ship down because we were hiring engineers and we had these like enterprise needs. They just cost. You have to invest in building software. It's very hard to make it profitable from the beginning. And I couldn't make it profitable from the beginning. So in 2017, we were about 6 weeks from running out of cash. And I sent, in the middle of the night, I sent a desperate, 10 or 15 emails to people and asked for help, asked for advice. And those people are the ones that funded our angel round, where we raised $1 million, and that saved us. And that was also the beginning of Bevy. So you should try to treat your equity like gold, if you can. It's very precious. And the more money you raise, the less control and options, the less doors you have that you can walk through. And so ideally you raise as little as possible, but sometimes you need to raise to be able to invest enough to get the product to a place where people will buy it.
What are the challenges that you face raising the next rounds?
Well, like everyone, I mean, the fundraising is very different now than it was even 2 or 3 years ago. And so I think the focus on revenue, customers, getting to break even, all of these things are important to us. And so actually I don't think about raising another round very much. I really just think about how do I help my customers more? How do we get to profitability or close to it so that, we can just continue on and forever. And, Startup Grind, we've made payroll for 12 years. I'm super proud of it. It's really hard to do. And, there's something really wonderful about just building a business that flows, cash flow positive, that you kind of control what you want to do on it. And so I think a lot of venture-backed companies have kind of faced that reality of, hey, I need to build a real business and I need to do it sooner than I thought. Let me figure it out. And it's been really hard for a lot of companies, and Bevy included in that. We've had to do hard things, but ultimately we're here to, what does Steve Blank say about a startup, it's you're in search of a business model, and so those are the things that we're all doing in search of a real business model, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Really grateful for all the hard things I get to go through, and the opportunities that we have. It's not easy, but I work with amazing people, and we work with fun companies, and and have as much joy in the journey as I can.
Derek, this has been fantastic. It has been absolute
Thank you.
honor,
Thank you for
honor
the
having
amazing,
you on the show.
amazing questions, and wonderful to see you. And yeah, appreciate being here. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you taking the time.